So I hope at the end of this event that you would have an idea of how to develop your innovation idea. You would understand the importance of proper research, evaluation of the concept. You would also pitch to investors. Oh, there's a lot going into pitching to investors. And you would also understand some of the challenges, because what we've noticed is that not a lot of people talk about these challenges. We're always keen to hear about the successes, but not the challenges. So we'll talk about that today. Now, before we proceed, because this is a network, we like to connect and to network with people. I would like you to, in the chat, tell us your name and where you're connecting from. You know, it's important if you've attended any of these events that we've hosted, we always do this to connect with people. So please tell us your name and where you're connecting from, and also what kind of social innovation you are interested in. It's always a pleasure to hear of different people doing different things from around the world. So I would just wait a few minutes as we do that, because it always reminds me of my radio days where I'm back in radio and, you know, like, oh, wait, you can't see me. Okay, I don't know.
Now we can see you.
I don't know what happened, but okay, now we're back. Great. So, okay, yeah, the travails of virtual meetings and all that. So please do tell us your name, where you are connecting to us from, because we always love to connect with each other and to network. Let's see whom. You could also just send it to me as a direct message as well, and I would read it because I'm always keen on doing things like that. Okay. So I can see Dawson, Dominic, hi, welcome. I can see Jane, hi Jane. I can see Tago, hello Tago, Brenda Tago. There's Winifred, there's Adidiji from Nigeria, hello, you're most welcome. There's Azza Hassan and Miracle Barry. So please do put in the chat, tell us your name, where you're connecting to us from. I'll do this again, but just before, just a few housekeeping rules. Please, if you'd want to, there will be time to ask questions. I'd encourage you to put your questions in the chat and I will read them out. But we would also have a chance, you know, looking at the time. Hi, Brenda from London. I don't know what the weather's like in London, but oh my God, it's just, that's why I have here. Always bring your own sunshine, you know, irrespective of what the weather's like, bring your own sunshine with you. So gloomy, yes, I know. So the others, tell us where you're joining us from. So if we have pressing questions, I would encourage you to unmute your mic and we can ask the questions directly to our investor. Because as I said, for those that are just joining us, Tolulope from Estonia, and I think I missed another one, Jane from the UK, hello. Okay, so I would hand over now and we'll come back and do a few more rounds of introduction, but I would like to hand over to the Executive Director of the African Social Innovators Network, Adeyinka Adewale, to tell us a bit, just a bit about the network before we go into the talk that we have today. It's going to be very exploratory and, you know, so much to learn from the journey of this innovator. Adeyinka.
Thank you so much, Genevieve, for the warm introduction. Hi, Azza from Scotland. I know Azza very well, so it's good to have you on board. Miracle, good to see you as well. Good to see you that you're on this call. Quite a few, you know, people on this call that I know. Adedeji James, good to see you. Thanks for joining. Brenda, pleasure having you on board as well. And it's just exciting. And I hope we have a wonderful, you know, time together this afternoon, you know, sharing knowledge and really impacting each other's journeys. like Genevieve rightly said, and thank you, Genevieve, for that wonderful introduction as well. You've kind of brought a lot of sunshine, so we can thrive on that for the next 1 hour before the battery goes out. You have to start recreating further sunshine. Uh, and if you are in Nigeria or from anywhere in the African zone, please turn on your cameras and take your cameras out in the sun. We need a lot of it here in the UK. And anyways, in the next couple of minutes, I just want to just share a few thoughts with participants on the call so far on the network, who we are, what we do, and what we are hoping to achieve. And if I was to summarize, before I share my screen and just run through a few slides, I typically don't like doing slides with these things, but I'll do it anyways. But just to kind of summarize things, the summary of it all is this: the journey of an innovator, or the journey of anyone who has an idea that they believe can bring significant impact or change our world, that journey of taking that idea and building it into what it truly will become, that end product we're immensely proud of, can be quite lonely. It can be quite lonely, not just because we have at times have to spend a lot of time trying to sell the idea to people, but oftentimes it's very difficult to locate your tribe. And when I say your tribe, I mean a group of people who are passionate about building things, who know exactly what you're going through, who know the ups and downs and the emotions of what it takes to be an innovator, and most importantly, who can just hold your hands and walk you through that journey. But more importantly also is that you might be finding it a bit difficult to say, okay, so I've got this idea, but I need help. It takes a community to raise a child. It takes a community to bring an innovation to life. You can't do it single-handedly. You need help. You need to bounce ideas off different groups of stakeholders. You want to speak to people in academia where possible, because they've got access to cutting-edge knowledge, updated research, places they can point you to get the insights you need. You want to speak to investors beforehand, and just feel their pulse on whether you are positioning things properly, whether your ideas are making sense. You want to speak to policymakers where possible, to understand regulatory environments and to know how things are changing. I mean, for those of you who know, if you've been reading anything about the tech space in a country like Nigeria, you can immediately understand where all of these is coming from, whereby there are loads of regulatory changes in the environment that are now supposedly stifling the growth of innovative tech startups. And so if we had a network, a place where people can come together and really connect a network and get those ideas and share them with this friendly cohort of people, in what would look like a virtual innovation ecosystem, it gives you that leverage and that starting point. And part of why we have Tolulope on the call today is because Tolulope, who is the founder of Avena Interactive, has actually been a product of that kind of village. And we're going to talk about his journey in a minute, but it's just for us creating that opportunity. And like Genevieve said, our joy would be to see people who started with raw ideas. And we've seen that in the last 6 months to 1 year, providing support for different innovators in different countries, working on Africa-focused projects, which is our focus, and taking them from idea and working with them strategically. Some of them now approaching market stage where they're actually building for the market, which for us is our absolute joy. So I've just summarized all that, and I'm just going to run through a few slides with you in about 3 minutes, and just to kind of summarize all I've said. And before we get into the meat of our conversation this afternoon. So again, just to re-emphasize, we're a global network of Africa-focused social innovators. And that means that you could be anywhere in the world as long as your innovation, your idea is focused on Africa, trying to help Africa, build Africa. that's really why we're here. We're here for you. And the idea is to bring together this network of Africa-focused social innovators, entrepreneurs, and key innovation ecosystem stakeholders, and fostering collaboration amongst everyone in that network to co-create solutions for Africa's toughest challenges. That's really what we hope to do, and we're literally a virtual innovation ecosystem. And that may mean that we may not get to even see face to face. And that's the world we live in now, except I come to a city near you and you choose to come around to say hello. You may not meet the people that you'll get to build very friendly, collegial relationships with, but you will feel their support every single step of the way. So we hope to connect you to people. That for us is our joy, absolute joy, connecting you with people. I remember an innovator I worked with through the ASI network. She's working on something on breast cancer for women in Africa. And I remember she came to me with the raw idea, and just 10 minutes into our conversation, I already kind of listed 3 people within the network that I knew she should be talking to, and just just do the networking. We don't pay brokerage fee for networking you with people. That's part of what we're here for. We connect you with people that we think you should be speaking to, who can add a little bit of color, flavor to your journeys. And once you become connected to them, then you're automatically connected to their network as well. So it just continues on like that. Education, for us, that's key. We've had master classes in the past. Expect more master classes in coming weeks and months, because we'll be bringing to the table some of the biggest investors, policy figureheads in Africa to come speak with you and connect you to some cutting edge knowledge and insight. Of course, community. We don't just connect you to people, we also connect you to communities. And Tolulope is a product of the Social Enterprise Incubation Program. They're one of our partners, and that's in itself another community. And we don't monopolize people. Once you come to us and we see there's a benefit for you in another community, we signpost you to that community, and we don't just signpost you, we get you through the door into that community so that you get what you need, and of course, support. Now, who is it for? You may wonder, but I've kind of hinted this earlier. Social innovators anywhere in the world working on Africa-focused projects, and we help members, anyone who is either in the raw idea stage. Like I said earlier, I've worked with people who came with raw ideas, and I've also worked with people, Genevieve and I've also worked with people who are in the more advanced stages of their ideas, having developed prototypes and now looking to get into the market. Service providers, professional support services providers, and mission-driven startups, and everyone willing to support mission-driven startups, and anyone who has a service they can render. So if you're on this call, part of being a member of the network is that you're also professionals in your right. We may be building something, but you're also trained at something. And if your service, your expertise could be made available to another member of the network, you let us know. We're more than happy to connect you with them. And even if it is a paid for service, as long as you let us know, we can let the innovators we're connecting with know the financial obligations. And another thing I'm going to say is be ready to pay for people's services, because not everything in this world should be free. And I hope we touch on that later. And also, ecosystem stakeholders, incubators, hubs, academic institutions, investors, public sector institutions, anyone who is willing to support social innovators. So how we serve you, we generally have 2 big strands of, programs. First are the ones we call general community activities, roundtables, masterclasses, showcases. Many of these are typically free. I'll say 90% of them are free. Some of them will be paid for. For instance, some masterclasses will be paid for, and we'll let you know when you have those masterclasses, and we'll give you good heads up. But we also have specific growth stage initiatives, mentoring. I've mentioned that earlier. We do a lot of coaching, mentoring, advisory services, publicity, for, facilitating business introduction and other professional support services. These are some of the ways we serve you. In the next couple of months, we've been working hard behind the scenes. I'm just going to give you a little bit of a snippet into this now, without giving too much away. We're currently designing our first fellowship program, which the end result of that will be to walk you through a journey and put you right in front of investors. And that for us would be an absolute joy, because we have a network of investors who are saying to me every day, we can't find innovators who have ideas that are worth investing in. People walk through the door, speak to them, and they're like, you need more help. You need to fine tune your ideas better before you come talk to us. And so a lot of young, eager innovators walk through the door to investors, they get repeated rejections, and then they get discouraged. So this fellowship will bridge that gap in some way. It's not the only one that's out there, but will be a significant one, bridging the gap between innovators and investors, walking you copiously through a very rigorous journey, putting you in front of investors only when we know you're ready to speak to those investors. But at the end of that fellowship program, you should actually be sitting in front of investors and pitching your idea and getting, so hopefully, fingers crossed, getting the funding that you need to take your ideas forward. So our website is africasocialinnovators.net. You can join us there, fill the form. You can reach out to us through there as well. And these are some of our partners, and I'm just going to stop there. Genevieve, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. It was really helpful to hear that. And I can see we have a few more people that have joined us while Adenka was just giving the introduction. So I would just remind you that if you have any questions, please put it in the chat and I will monitor the chat. I'll read them out, and towards the end, we may have an opportunity for you to unmute your mic. And yes, definitely. We'll send the link. Okay, great. So you would send that out to all the partners. Now, before we hand over to our innovator, I would just like to read out a short bio on him. So we have Tolulope Kilanko, who is the co-founder of Avena Interactive. It's an interactive learning solution provider using the user's mother tongue. Very interesting. So he has hands-on experience in project management, product development, because he has worked in the mobile games sector. Now, he co-founded Avena Games, which is a Nigerian game development company. Tolulope is also passionate about the environment, technology, and education, and he holds a Master of Arts degree in Social Entrepreneurship from Tallinn University. So we'll hand over to Tolulope now to talk us through he'll give us a short presentation and a short demo on the product that he has developed. Then we will go into questions. So we'll have a short Q&A with Adenka hosting, and I would interject with questions from you. If you have questions, please put them in the chat. So without further ado, over to the man of the moment, I would say. Tolulope, please. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Hi Genevieve, thanks for the introduction. It's really nice. And thank you Adenka and the African Social Network for the opportunity to share my story. So, okay, I just have to share this just a moment. So, the journey started a while back, and the journey is still on. And moment. Okay. Okay. So, I currently am working on Avena Interactive. Like she said, it's the company that tries to help solve educational challenges in Africa, for starters, through innovation in like through using basically the mother tongue. So there's already a background about me, so we skip this. Yeah, one moment. Okay, so I would go straight to the point. So why did I come up with this idea? I was working in the games industry, and we had this challenge of distribution, so we had to use third parties. So we had to use third-party companies, and there was a problem of low internet penetration. There's the cost of data, I actually did a data cost comparison with what I use here with Nigeria, and I realized that I spend cheaper. I get more value from my money here than they get in Nigeria. So it's basically high cost of data for them. And then one of the key problems that motivated me was the existing inequality in learning in for kids, because if you look on the average middle income, lower income and high, the high class, the middle class and the lower class, plus like looking at these kids that are trained in Western countries, whether they are Nigerians or non-Nigerians, you see like it seems the level of IQ is pretty much higher. You see them talking about interesting stuff that we probably have forgotten about because they are talking about maybe something about geography, because they have access to some resources, and these resources has been custom created just for them because they understand the language. They grew up speaking English, and it's like and it doesn't necessarily mean that the kids from the other side of the world or from Nigeria, like, it's not okay. I don't want to create a narrative that or kids from Nigeria. There are kids in Nigeria that are actually really, really exposed because there's the difference in class. But looking at the kids that we're talking about, the ones without equal access. So if they had the opportunity, I'm sure they would also exhibit like high intelligence and IQ and all these stuff. Because I saw this story about the chess. There was this kid that just got introduced to chess in Makoko, and is like going crazy and doing exploits. So then based on this, yeah, I decided to like explore an additional way to use not just games, but using technology to solve learning problems in Nigeria for starters, so that there can be more like equality in learning for these kids. So there's a bit of delay with my slides. So I also targeted this towards the SDG goals, which is basically quality education, and most importantly, equal access to quality education for pre-primary school kids. These kids are between the ages of 1 to 8, or ideally 1 to 6, but I am looking at 1 to 8. So, okay. So I would quickly go through so that was my motivation for starting Avena Games. I mean, Avena Interactive, yeah, to address the problem in a more direct way, in a more practical way, and to have more coverage. Now, this motivated this idea. There was a lot that came before we got to this point where we have Avena Highbox, and as it is at the moment, it is currently in development. So we follow this process of is going before me. Sorry about that. So we follow this process of design thinking. So there's a stage for like there's the empathizing, there's the research. I will try to go in depth into that maybe later on. So the products. Pardon my slide jumping. I think my PC was hanging. So I skipped this part about Avena. So we just want to make sure that we make learning fun for these kids. We make it interactive, because interactivity is very important. They have to interact so they can remember. And then we focus on their first language, because a lot of research has been done, and we know it's really important for them to learn. It helps them in developing skills. Like the foundation is just really, really important. So this is what I also want to build on when I started like trying to solve this problem and creating this solution. So I would quickly tell us a bit about this toy. So it's like the size of a laptop, but not as heavy as a laptop because they're kids. And it's basically in 2 modes, the learn mode and the quiz mode. The learn mode allows the kids to press and they listen, and there's a narration in the selected language. So if you see the other side, right now it's showing English, Igbo, English, Yoruba, English, Hausa. So I'm starting with 3 major languages, we have over 500 languages. I'm sure most people are from Nigeria, but in case you're not, we have more than 500 languages in Nigeria, and it's like a lot. And we have to start from somewhere. So it's easier to start with the major. So when they press the button, there's a narrative and they listen, and then they press the button and there's a narrative. So it's more about for them to press and they listen, they press, and the more they press, they hear, and there's some fun tidbits to it. And interaction, you can see, is really important, because it's not just about them playing a video and then they could lose interest if they don't press, they don't there's no more engagement, so they engage to learn. So the quiz mode is more like after they've played, they can always switch between the learn mode and the quiz mode. So quiz mode is more like once it goes into the quiz mode, there's a question, they have to press the right button to select the answer. So at the moment, this is the most, I think, is a very primitive idea. When I was thinking of a solution like this, I was thinking of something more sophisticated. But like I said, there was a lot of research that made us to arrive at this current solution. I believe maybe in the future, we probably are going to scale it, or maybe make it more sophisticated, hopefully when we have a lot of more kids that have more access, and then we try to expand more products and more markets and the like. So I'll quickly run through the demo. If you like, we could, I'll share the link. One moment, I'll share the link on the chat in case you want to check out the demo. It's just to basically show us how it works. Just give me a moment. Okay, so if you press, you have to switch the language mode, and don't worry, the language menu is not going to be right here. It's going to be somewhere at the back or hidden, so that the kids don't mess with it. So it's always going to be in maybe one language mode at some point, at point of use. So we could choose, let's choose English to Yoruba. And then there are just about 4 buttons active, just to give us an, we use this for testing with the teachers and some of the parents and some of the kids. So I go 18. Didn't hear that. So. Okay, I'll go again. Number 13.
Etala.
And then
Letter L. Leg. Hesse.
Letter
C. Cow. Malu.
So just switch to Igbo before I switch back to the
letter C. Cow. Ehi.
Okay. So that's just it. If you could just play around with the link. And we're still in product development. If there's any feedback, I'm always open to getting more feedback from you. We've gotten some really interesting feedback, like I'm not going to use my voice. I'm going to use a nicer voice. And we're not going to use the letter because it's going to be too repetitive. So that was some interesting feedback we got while doing the research. And we still have a timeline for between product development to manufacture, which is about 5 to 6 months. So before the end of the year, we should have something. But in 6 months' time, there's the plan to already have the final product in the market to be tested, like real life product tested. And if it's fine, we mass produce. If it's not fine, we go back and iterate some stuff. And so that is my journey. I mean, my product so far. So I would okay, thank you.
Goodness, that is amazing. Like, oh, for me, before we start the Q&A, because we now want to then break down the journey. For me, it's about the the way the children would understand multilingualism, so I don't know what 18 was in Yoruba, but sort of now I know. I have a faint idea. And so it's absolutely amazing. So I'll hand over to Adenka to do the Q&A, but please put your questions in the chat if you have questions for him. And as they do the conversations on, okay, but how did you get here? It's a good idea, but how did you get here? That's what we want to know. So do put your questions in the chat.
Thank you very much, Genevieve, and wow, Tolu, thank you so much. I mean, that was it was beautiful to see that demo again. And good job, good job.
Thank you.
And you see, I think for me, there's a lot of current narrative about claiming back our culture, particularly not just even for young Africans living in Africa, but the huge diaspora body, because we have a massive diaspora network at the moment, and there's a lot of identity conflict. Many children born abroad, parents are looking for opportunities for them to at least claim their identity back, not by wearing Ankara every other once a month for some cultural day thing in school, or once a year, but and not just, even eating the food, and speaking the yeah, Brenda is surprised I said that. Yeah, I mean, we tend to, put pancakes and, makeup on this thing. There's a lot that we can do to reclaim identity beyond just wearing Ankara once a year for some, some people even wear it for Halloween, but that's another story. But, the idea here is to really give culture back to the children because it's their identity, gives them a stronger sense of purpose, give them a stronger sense of identity and belonging. And what you're doing, Tolu, why I'm saying this is because, there's a lot of talk that goes under the bridge. We say it a lot. We're very good at talking. We're very good at, sharing ideas. We're very good at saying this is what must be done. But as simple as what you're doing is, and I'm not saying what you're doing is by any means simple, Tolu, I'm just using that loosely. I haven't seen anyone give that a crack, give it a full-blown shot to say, I'm going to build this thing and I'm really going to put it in the market. We say, yes, we're going to, give questions, we're going to give language back to our children and all of that, but no one is really pushing it as hard as they can. There are several other interventions out there. We know there are YouTube channels now creating cartoons. So if you're on this call and you're interested in this kind of space, there are now people who are creating animated, songs and, numbers and so on and so forth. But this is just another level. So thank you, Tolu, for sharing this with us. So now to just you and I and everyone else having a conversation with us on how you went from idea to market. The first slide you shared, which you quickly glossed over, was about your background. You have a background in urban planning and in computer-aided design, CAD. And then you started off by building games. I wanted to just speak very briefly to the link between your background, how your background played a role in this trajectory you've taken.
Okay. So I will start. I think I'll push back a little bit even before the urban planning. As a child, I mean, as a student back in secondary school, I thought, oh, I would like to be an animal scientist because I would like to do some cross-examination for this, like animals and stems and then I grew that, and then it was economics. And I was like, oh, I want to study economics. Then I realized that, well, I actually understand money, but do I want to study economics and do all the mathematics? No. So I really loved geography. I knew my cities, I knew everything. So that motivated me I saw this course, urban and regional planning, and I was like, okay, I'll go for it. So I made it my choice. I went for the course. I didn't really know so much about it. So it was basically going to make me a town planner. I didn't know that. So, but it was really fun trying to understand and learning. And this introduced me to design. And design introduced me to, I saw, okay, we could do a lot of not just city designs, but some architectural designs. So I was curious. I went on to learn some AutoCAD. And then I was just so curious. I went on to do some more 3D. I was doing 3D Max. And while I was doing that, I met a couple of people who needed my services in 3D modeling. So I had to create characters and assets for their games. And then that was how I met a friend. And then I worked in the gaming industry for a bit, but I felt like I was not doing enough. Like I wanted more from the industry. So I talked to another friend and we started the first company, my first game company. And it was really cool. That was back in 2016. So we applied for the first set of funding. We had the prototypes, we had some games out, but we didn't really have some like revenue. But after a while, we were able to get revenue and get funding as well. So it was like a really nice journey. It had its own ups and downs, the backs and forths too, but that was the transition from urban planning to design to games. And then from the games, I had this passion for like more of education, because I saw most of the games we were making initially were more like cultural games. We had titles like Abu's Quest, we had titles like Azizat, and a lot of like Ogbojo there. So, but I just needed something more. Yeah, games are really good for kids to develop their mental capacity, but I wanted something much more, like much more. So we worked on this quiz game. It's still in progress, a bit paused. I would say paused for more than a year because of my masters. It's called a quiz up. No, not quiz up. Quiz Guru. Yes. So Quiz Guru, we paused it because it was supposed to be like expanded and the budget was a bit crazy. So we had to like pause. So, but I figured that maybe we don't really need to have this crazy budgets to build something, and maybe we could actually, and then we could get more people to use these products than people with smartphones and iPhones. And because it's more about versions, it's more about updates, it's more about buying data. If they break their screen, they have to fix their screen. It's more like you need to have some level of, I would say, a little bit of luxury to be able to access the basic things we're providing. So this was the motivation for the transition to something more practical, something more realistic. Then seeing one article, like I read a couple of times, I saw one article about how guys like Dangote make money. Like they I'm not saying it's less important to do IT. I believe so much in IT, but before we get Africa, like every part of Nigeria and Africa, to that part where everybody's like having the same level of at least a balanced IT infrastructure, I think we need to focus more on the very basic things. Like Dangote is selling the basic things. Is not selling artificial intelligence. Is not selling because it is Africa. If you see most of the scaled projects in Africa, I think not even like the funded projects, like the practical buy and sell solutions, I think they are more like solving the very, very basic problems, because we have a lot of people facing these basic problems. So that is where the motivation comes from.
Wow, that's really exciting. Thanks for sharing that. And I see your trajectory and how your background, from just doing town planning, getting into computer-aided design, learning softwares, going into 3D, building characters and all of that merged together. And as you were speaking, it just dawned on me that there might be someone on this call who might have ideas requiring those kind of skills. And just wanted to say, don't let that deter you by any means, please, because you can outsource these skill sets to other people. It just means you need to build a solid team of complementary skill sets, people who can help you with the aspects you are not very strong at. And so just make sure, just to put that in mind. I think Tolu's idea is one of those ideas that, at least from the very foundational stage, he had some of the skill sets that he needed to at least get things started. But I'm going to come to a bit where I'm aware of this from your story, where you've had to pay for external services to support your idea. Tell us a little bit more about that, Tolu.
It's interesting because having to pay maybe as an entrepreneur is not easy. Yeah. Like even looking back before now, like you have about, maybe I got some 200,000. I need to take care of myself. I need to travel to do some other important things to make money. And then I need to pay the developer to make this game so we can distribute the games, and hopefully, no guarantee, but hopefully, because I don't program games. Actually, I don't program games. So all my games were like I hired someone, or I hired some Nigerian guys, or some uh in what do you call it, India, Pakistani guys. So I had to pay for all these things. So it's more like a sacrifice for me. Like I just, for I think it's also about motivation because I want to see, I like results. So I don't mind the little sacrifice. Sometimes it's a bit more than little, but I just have to pay for it. And then sometimes I have to deny myself of the basic or this not so luxury, but the basic things that we would normally go for, maybe going to the movies or getting a very, very fancy meal and then just focus the money on other stuff.
Oh, thanks for that, Tolu. And I also know you paid for research. We have two questions in the audience from the audience. I'm going to pick for you in a minute. But you paid for research, and I know there are a few academics on this call. I mean, at least ignore that I'm one. We're interested in that because that sounds exciting to me. Why did you pay for research?
So this is interesting because I am building this and I wanted to do it right because it's more like I did a very unique master's program. So it's more like blending academic with reality. But this master's program was a bit different because it was more practical. My project was practical, and I had to use this prototype for my project because I just wanted to do something realistic. So it was about doing it right. And then there was this lady. She's really good with research, and she wasn't she taught us at some point, but I needed to get access to her, and for me to have access to her I needed to like have a consultancy. I mean, like register for a session. So I had to pay for that because luckily she was on the social entrepreneurship incubation program. So I had access to her. I was like, oh, good, she's here. So I just had to pay for the hour, and then I had my questions because I needed to do research and not just academic research. I wanted to get some practical like insights, like how do I get this data? What should I be thinking about? Because I was thinking, but someone is a pro, so it's always better to ask. So it was productive, I would say, because during the session we were able to. I sent her some things before, then we were able to like go through everything, and then we had to like segment the respondents in a way. So I would have probably addressed maybe the same like one questionnaire for like everybody, but I had to like segment them. There were like 4 segments for some sets. 2 sets I had to do like 2 different questionnaires. The teachers and the parents like ask them in details and get their insights, and then for the others it was more like just go have a session with them, a call or like a chat, like a discussion, and it was really worth it. It was worth it. Yeah.
So just to follow up on that, to break down the research a bit more, what did you have exactly? Was it questionnaires? How did you get your participants? And then when you said you did with the parents, how did you go about the ethics?
Okay. All right. So that's the research part was when I wrote it down, I was like research. And then when I started it, I was like, oh my God, research. Because the parents, I had to like 2 questionnaires. So for the parents, I tried to make sure that the people that were interviewed were parents with kids in the schools that we administered with questionnaires to the teachers as well.
Where's the location? Was this
Nigeria? Yeah, this was in Nigeria. So I picked basically 6 locations. I had to cancel like 1 or 2 because of challenges. So, and then all through this process, I was in Estonia. So it was more about getting data in Nigeria and trying to use all available resources to use and ethical resources to get the data. So I had to hire. Luckily, I had a friend, I had some coppers, so I hired like data collectors. And then while hiring and they were on site, I realized another problem. You have to speak the language. If you don't speak Yoruba, you cannot talk to the parents. If you don't speak Hausa, you cannot talk to some of these parents. So it was more like, oh, so this guy is not gonna work. I need another guy. So they had to do some kind of translating the questionnaires. So it was a Google Forms. It was just like I was like, oh, it's Google Forms. So I just send the link and they fill for the teachers. But no, we had to print it. We had to print it. We had to take it down to them, and then they were not necessarily going to even fill it that day, but we did a lot of follow-ups. It was really like a not so straightforward process, but eventually we got there. And then like I think, like I said earlier, the parents were mostly from with kids with parents with kids in that same school that we administer. So we looked at Enugu, Anambra, Oshun, Kaduna, and Kano. So another thing that came up during that data collection was Lagos. Lagos people wanted to get paid for the questionnaires, for collecting data. And I was like, one, I don't have the budget for this. Two, why should I pay you for as a teacher? Like, why? So I just had to cancel Lagos out of my research because anyways, I was like, anyways, most people in Lagos speak English or they speak broken. So I feel the people in the extremes need it more. So that was the process for me. Like, I know I probably did not touch everything, but
No, I mean, thank you, Tulu. Thanks for being real, because there are many innovators on this call who have spoken to me personally, having great ideas, and it's never going to be a straight line. It's never going to be easy. I know Jane has put a question, and Brenda had asked a question previously, which your answers kind of started to pick up on, around the challenges you faced from moving from idea to this prototype stage and this very late development stage of your idea. I wanted to ask, you've mentioned budget and money a few times, and for many people on this call, it's about the Benjamins, isn't it? So how have you been able to fund your idea so far? Have you received any external help? Or has it been all bootstrapping all the way?
okay. So I would before I answer this question, I need to remind, like, I think before you start an idea, you should be ready to bootstrap, and that means spending your money to get results first, because it's just like a no-brainer. If one is not able to put his own money in a product or in an idea, I don't think anybody will, except maybe you're someone like maybe Sim Shagaya Konga, who has, like, they said his hand is like hand of gold. So any idea he touches is gold. If you're not that kind of person without history, you need to put your upfront. So this was like me. I know it was like I knew this thing. So when I did the first company, I had to first make the first two games, make the website, put the games out there into the store, pay the store, what do you call it, registration for Microsoft and Android. And I was there before I got the first funding from Tony Elumelu. And along the years, like, I got some nominations and then funding from Sterling Bank and the likes. So for this right now, I've been using my funding, and I must say this is it's not like I know I'm abroad. Yeah, maybe there's the comparison that, oh, it's better abroad than in Nigeria. I have to pay bills because I'm a student, and I didn't have a job through most of the process. So I was hustling, I was freelancing, I was doing everything possible to just make sure that I paid my bills and keep the dream running, because it was more like the reason why I'm studying is to keep the dream running, and then this is why I'm doing this. This is why I'm doing what I do. So it was a lot of sacrifice, I would say. I know there's a direction, and I feel like I'm getting closer to the direction, because the prototype is like is transitioning from virtual to physical, which gives me some joy. And I know that I'll be so much happier when, like, it's physical, then we can go to market and try to convince people to buy and expand and maybe sell. I mean, to invest as well. Yeah.
Wow, great stuff, Tolulope. And I think for me, one of the acid tests that I often push to any innovator, and I've developed an instinct for it, is how passionate are you about your idea? Because if you're passionate about it, you will go to any length to see it come to life. And because there are many people who have really great ideas, and then once they start off and then they face the first couple of bumps, they're like, man, I can't deal. They just drop it off. But for someone like you, you've really had to pay your dues. You've had to pay the price. I know along the way you did get some help. You've mentioned Tony Elumelu Foundation, which, by the way, for anyone on this call, if you don't know about Tony Elumelu Foundation and the $5,000 they give to select entrepreneurs every year, something worth looking into. Bank support, in form of grants. And there's some of those grants and funds happening out there. So thanks for sharing that. Jane has two questions for you, Tolu.
Okay.
She says, during your presentation, you mentioned spending less on data in your present location. How do you intend to bridge the gap back home and make it a reality through your innovation in terms of accessibility for all kids?
Okay, so for this is why I'm actually coming to the market from this direction, because as it is, this device does not use, it's not internet enabled. It doesn't need internet to work. And it's because of the reality on ground. Uh, uh, it's more expensive to get data in Nigeria, and even more expensive if the data cost is rising or the data value is decreasing. So for now, I don't know if the government, because what I can do about this problem is to create solutions that might not necessarily need internet for now. I know we can't do this for long because we need internet penetration. We need data for these kids to have more value. So in the future, because the dream is to have more products with more digital access, which need for internet. But I hope the government or whoever is in charge of monitoring the prices and all these things can do something, or innovation is going to catch up. Like guys like Elon Musk, they have Starlink. If they can allow services like that to run in Nigeria without feeling like it's too much of a competition, I think it's going to be cheaper. People can pull together and pay for the services and enjoy fast and reliable internet and maybe cheaper internet in the long run. Yeah.
Thanks for that. And I hope that answers that question, Jane. So great stuff. The second question Jane has posed here is about your target market. Is this innovation aimed at the class of the elite in Nigeria? And I think Jane is also piggybacking off the point I made about the diaspora market, which is potentially a huge market for you as well. So who is your target market? And what's the, I mean, I know I'm pushing you a little bit hard here, but what would be what would be the price point in some? I know you it takes a lot to come to that, but what would you imagine would be the price point from an affordability and accessibility standpoint?
Okay, so I would like to answer this because I have something on my slide. Excuse me. So, going through the process I used to get to the point, it might not be so clear. Sorry about that. It's a bit zoomed in or zoomed out. So I use the regular design thinking process, which is really practical. I love it. So it's helped with the research consultation with the researchers. It really helped to define the possible markets, because there are two sides to the coin here. Initially, I was thinking, oh, it's just kids in Nigeria who can't speak English, who need to learn things faster, so they should have access to learning their language. But then there's this other set of kids abroad who don't even speak their mother tongue. And for instance, I was surprised recently. I was talking to a friend and realized that, oh, it's not just the fact that we are losing the language. Igbo, for instance, is under the endangered language list. And I'm surprised, like, wait, there are 25 million speakers and it's endangered. Whoa. So that means I didn't check for Yoruba. I should check, but I didn't check. I didn't check for Hausa. I didn't check for a lot of languages that have smaller native speakers. So that means a lot of languages are getting endangered, I'm sure. So the research, the process made me to realize there are two sides to the coin, and this is a product that's gonna service two sets of the market. The I would not say elites and lower class. I would just say those with access and to like this English, because they've been speaking English all along in Nigeria or abroad, and those without. Because you'll be surprised that an average kid in Nigeria, probably in Lagos, probably won't be able to speak good Yoruba or good Hausa because they don't know. You say, what is this? And they say, I don't know, it's a cat, because they've never had Olongbo or so. So it's like the two sides of the coin. I hope that answers the question.
It does, and thanks to for that. I think that's a fantastic response. And I think your point is quite valid. And that's what for me was a shocker. For a language with 25 million speakers on the endangered language list is for me is a wake-up call that we really need to get into and get onto solving these problems. Now, please, if you're on the call, feel free to ask Tolulope any questions. And if you want to ask in person, just raise your hand. We'll ask you to unmute yourself and ask your questions directly. We would also love to hear your voices. So don't leave it to Genevieve and myself alone. So failure.
So before we do failure, you can use
Yeah.
the reaction buttons at the bottom, just to indicate that you want to ask a question. So that way we know, and then we unmute. So if you scroll the bottom, there's a reaction. You could choose any one of those, and then we know you want to ask a question.
Thanks for that, Genevieve. So please use the reaction function to raise your hand or to react to whatever you're hearing Tolu share with us this wonderful afternoon. Failure. That for me is an elephant in the room. Why? Because we get a lot of coaching conversations around how to bounce back from setbacks, how to bounce back from failure. Now, the Brenda's questions earlier were more on challenges. When challenges get to a level, it can push you to the brink and you might actually ditch, jump ship completely. Could you tell us, during this process, have you experienced any sort of failure? Now, the reason why I asked that question is because regardless, we are now where we are. And you've had to cross a lot of hurdles. At what point, what would you say was the lowest moment? Was a point where you felt, okay, I failed here, but how did you gather yourself back together up and how did you move?
Okay, I think it's because of the mindset. Yeah. I think I would say failure is that point when you give up finally. So if you don't take it as a failure, you take it as a challenge. That's my mindset, because a lot of things don't work. Like a lot of things don't work. I could give you my story. Like I give you the story in Nigeria. So in the past, I was a farmer. Yeah. I invested some of my savings in, while I was running my game company also, I invested in farming, because I'm like all over, like I'm very, very, like I like getting things done. So I'm very active. So I think I had about more than 50% loss from that venture. Yeah. Now, if someone else will look at it, it would be called a failure. Yeah. But for me, it was, I saw it more like a business school. It was a lesson, like what to do, what not to do. Even if the problem was not from me or if it was from me, okay, learning points for me were like, okay, I went to a land that was maybe not so fertile. That might be my fault. But then security, it wasn't my duty to provide security. So why did I say this? A man passed by, an old man, like maybe in his 60 something years or 70, and he plugged, like I planted maize. So I don't stay in this place. I stay in Lagos. I had to drive down to the place like every 3-4 days in a week, 2 hours drive in Abeokuta. So the people around said they caught the man that he had about 14 cups of maize from my farm. And I was like, but ask him why. And they asked him and he said, I'm sorry, I thought it was for the government. So these things, like he was not the only person that came to steal. There were other people that came to steal. I will come to the farm sometimes. In the middle of the farm, I see it's been harvested and packed in a sack. Should I have gotten someone to watch it? I don't know. Maybe I should have, but that's increased cost for me. But is it my fault? Maybe. Is it their fault? Yes. So it's shared faults, but for me, it's a lesson. Maybe next time, if I want to farm, I find a secure location, I find a very perfect place, and then I make sure that the government is stable, because then there was a time the government gave waiver to some company to import maize from the US at that time, which crashed the price of maize, which disrupted my projections. So that's just like an example. For me, it's more like things to consider when you're doing this again, like you should be careful, you should consider more stuffs, and you should do things differently. So coming back to the failure question, I see everything as a challenge. If it doesn't work this way, you have to find another way to fix it. It would be stupid to keep doing the same thing over and over again without trying to change, finding out why it's failing. So I would say it's always a challenge. You have to be persistent and figure a way around it. So perception about failure, that's a bit different. So there are so many challenges. I would say so many challenges. So, but it's the perception that really matters.
Excellent. Genevieve, do you want to take the question from Janet?
Yes, so thank you for that. That was really helpful. And I was just slightly triggered by, okay, it was for the government. So if it's for the government, like, why are you still taking it anyway? Yes, so it's fascinating. There's another question here. But before we do that, I also want you to talk about any help that you got. Now, this is not financial help in terms of support network, coaching. What did you do along the way to ensure that you were not walking this journey alone? Did you seek counsel? What did you do so that people that are listening, they have an idea of, okay, I could go get certain coaching advice from, ABC.
Okay, so this is an interesting one, yeah, and I think it sheds more light to the journey. Okay, so the first thing I did when I knew that this is the sector I want to address, I did some initial research, and then I talked to an expert in this. It's also like, he's my co-founder in Avena Interactive. Is Emmanuel. He specializes in IoT. So I didn't study electrical electronics. So for me to build this, I'm confident that we're gonna build this because I was able to find the right partner. So I don't try to worry about I don't know this thing. How are we gonna do it? If I don't know and I can't find by research, I try to find the people that know. So which also brings me to the part where you have to share your idea with people, because you might find people that have like common interest or passion for something similar, because it's more about solving the problem than it's good to, we're gonna have to make money. So like it's by default, but it's more about solving the problem. So trying to answer the question, I spoke to a lot of people. I met a couple of people. Hey, what do you do? This is what I do, but I'm working on this. I'm trying to build this. And oh, really interesting. So there were the individuals and there were the the group. So one of the supports I got was from SEIP in the Social Incubation Program. So I had access to mentors, and some were free, some I paid. Yeah, I had access to like product experts who could like, they helped me during the process of developing the idea and trying to like figure out, okay, this is a good idea, this is, maybe you should consider this option maybe. So it was really interesting to get this input from these people. And then other supports include like, okay, another thing I got from them was interns. They were really helpful in doing some of the paperwork. But on a more individual level, I the prototypes I should show you, I had a sketch. That was all I could come up with, like just a paper sketch. Maybe I should show you what it looks like just in a minute. And it was someone else that's okay. So transitioning from this one on the left side, this was my initial idea. Like when I was trying to transition, it was someone else that created this for me, and I didn't pay a dime. It was a friend. She's really good with visualizing stuff. We had some meetings and we went ahead and we got to this point. And from this point, we got to this point. I paid for this, but along the way, I got some free services, and then I got some. I got to pay for some by myself for some, and then we got to this point, and it's just a journey. So I got support from people around my network, the profession, like the group and individuals, basically.
Could you let me interrupt you there, Tolu, because I find this to be quite fascinating. That hand-drawn thing, when we teach design thinking, and we get to the point where we talk about prototyping, we always say to people, just do it. And people don't get it when we say just do it. They wonder, what do you mean just do it? I'm trying to design a laptop. And I'm like, get cardboard containers, or get an Amazon box, or get something to just create the feel and do it. And it often sounds crazy, but looking at what you just shared with us, you started with the tiny sketch on paper. And then someone translated that into cellophane thing from, you get in products, and sticking it on paper. As simple as that is, it did give you another sense of this thing is coming to life. I want you to just speak a little bit to the transitionings a little bit more. When you saw this second stage of the prototype, the one that took your idea and put it in real, how did that make you feel? What did it do to you psychologically? I think it's important to share this story.
So for that, it's more like it's always motivating, because I am someone that loves results. So this was for me, like, I see each step, because this is a very visual step. It's like you can see it's different from the steps that were like productive and progressive, but we cannot really see. So for me, it was like, oh my God, we're getting closer. So I made the initial sketch without an idea of the sizes and the measurements and all. And then transitioning to this sort of thing with the cardboard and everything was more like, oh, now this is going to work like this. Okay, maybe it should be bigger. Or maybe we need to adjust the size of these buttons. And then this was very, very important in getting to the next stage of the prototype, which was I'll call it the digital prototype. I mean, the virtual one, and the hardware. So this was going to dictate what the real hardware was going to, I mean, the virtual was going to look like, because the virtual was eventually going to be 3D printed. Currently, we're doing the 3D printed, we're working on the 3D print, the CAM design. So it can be like, we can do printing in Lagos. We don't have to do that from China. So, but it's just like, it's like, based on the question, it's just like really, really like motivating, I must say, because it feels like the idea is moving forward, which is the best thing to keep the fuel and keep pushing. It just motivates so much. Yeah.
Fantastic. I mean, I absolutely love that. We have about 7-8 more minutes to close, to wrap up. So if you're wondering when this is going to end, it's going to end pretty shortly. I'm going to share a poll with you all. Please try and help fill the poll so that we feel your pulse on how you feel about the today's session. But more importantly, Tolu, as we wrap up, now you are here, what next? We don't know who is on the call, so we're going to do two things. I'm going to play a game with you now. So someone may be listening and saying, okay, what game is it going to play? We're going to play a quick game, and here's the game. You're going to tell us what next, and you're going to tell us 3 things you think you need to get there. And here is the catch for everyone on this call. If you know anyone who can help Tolu with any of the 3 things he's about to say he needs to get to that next, what next, would you be kind enough to drop him an email? Would you be kind enough to reach out to him? Would you be kind enough to just drop him a word of encouragement, anything at all, to help him get closer to what next? Because we're here now, and I want to see this toy come alive. I want to see this toy in the hands of thousands and millions of children. I want to see Tolu scale this to Arabic, Swahili, to Shona. I want to see this go into Zulu. I mean, I want to see this become a big thing. So let's talk about that, Tolu. What do you think? What next? What do you need to get there?
Okay, so what next?
And we'll take Janet's question as well. Janet's still, we're going to take Janet's question. Yeah.
So what next? It's for me more like a long term and short term. Yeah. So immediately, and then what next list is the finishing the prototype, making the products complete, and then distributing. So this will bring me to the first part of, we already think we have distribution figured out, but we need more, because I'm trying to make distribution on both conventional sales platforms like Amazon, Jumia, and also like through NGOs. So if you know any NGOs that are like focused on edtech or education, it would be really nice to connect with them. It doesn't even matter if they're in Nigeria or they're not in Nigeria. If they're in Kenya, any country, like, or if they're global, it would be nice if you have a connect, like if you have some network there. Because this for me is two ways. NGOs for distribution is one, and then NGOs for partnership is the other thing. Because if we could get someone in maybe ActionAid or this other highbrow international organizations, it will go a long way if we can get a partnership and we can figure something out together. So that's on one side. The other side is if you know anybody in Nigeria, like language experts, even if it's Igbo, in Hausa, Yoruba, because it's like we're trying to add more content, and then outside Nigeria, Swahili, Kenya, Namibia. The goal is to finish Nigeria and then find a way to scale. Once we have a product ready, it's easier to scale to other countries once, because it's just about finding the content. So it would be really nice to have all this network and get these people and try to have the content ahead of time. So it reduces the time to market for these other countries. And then last on the list, which is very key, is once we're in the market, we're going to need funding. And then it would be nice to keep our investors updated so they can see the journey, because now I'm not asking for money, but when I get to the market and I have traction, definitely there's going to be need to scale. So it would be nice to have investors, keep them updated and see the progress of the journey. So if there are any investors interested in EdTech, in like technology in Africa, and then I would like to have them on the mailing list so we can just send like weekly updates. So for me, that's it.
Thank you very much, Tolu. And so please, if you're on the call and you know anybody who can help Tolu with any of these things he's mentioned, please reach out to him. And if you want to, I mean, Tolu, I don't know if you're open to any, I mean, it's rather strange, but if you're open to any kind of partnerships, you just never can tell. I know you and I have spoken about this. You're a very open-minded entrepreneur as well.
Yeah.
If you're open to partnerships, please reach out to Tolu. Could you give us put your email address in the comment box so that people know how to reach out to you? They can send you an email and know how to, just touch base with you should that be necessary. Now to the question Janet asked, which I think is an important question. Janet says, this is very interesting. And thank you very much, Mr. Tolulope. Does this use battery or electricity to power it? Because those in rural areas in Africa, especially in Nigeria, where electricity is not available and the kids there need this. So what are you planning on doing?
Okay, so this is going to use battery. Maybe in the future, we're going to consider solar. But for now, to keep the cost low, because we had some research and then we know solar is going to be important, but it's going to increase our costs. So then if we're going to use solar, probably a much more rich product. So for now, it's just going to be a battery and they can charge it or recharge it. So even if they don't have power in their house, they can always take it to the neighbor's shop and get it charged and bring it home and have fun. Yeah.
Thanks. So it's going to be like your typical Android, little mini Android charger thing. And you're just
exactly
handheld. Okay, excellent. Excellent. We have 2 more minutes before we wrap up. Genevieve, any thoughts from you?
Yes. So this has been very, very, very insightful. Very insightful. Thank you to Tolulope. I just wanted to say that. So those on the call, if you want to connect with us, or if you have any specific question or coaching question, you could get in touch with us or with Adeyinka, because I forgot to mention in the beginning that he's actually an associate professor at Henley Business School. So, hey, do get in touch with him. Please put your LinkedIn. You could get in touch with him via LinkedIn or through the website. We'll put that in the chat. But yes, it has been very, very, very interesting listening to all this from me. And Yinka, do you want to round this up?
Yes, thanks, Genevieve, for that. Yep, we can touch base on LinkedIn. If you're on the call as well, let's find each other on LinkedIn. Let's connect with each other on LinkedIn as well. It's useful. I have one cheeky question for everybody. When we came up with this, from idea to market, in conversation with an innovator showcase, I thought it was going to happen just maybe once or twice a year. But if you think this is something you want to see a little bit more frequently, whereby we tap into our network and bring in innovators who have actually built stuff, could you just indicate in the chat with a Y or N. Is this something you want to see more of? This particular kind of focused conversation around someone who has built something and is going to tell us about how they move from just idea to market. Excellent. So I see there's a lot of vibe. So expect more of this. I will get another other several innovators, and it's not just going to be in the education industry. I have people in health, in agriculture, finance. There are so many innovators that we do work with who will share their thoughts with us, and I would be more than excited to bring them on board to share their journeys with you also. Thank you for that. On behalf of the Africa Social Innovators Network and on behalf of everyone on the call today, can we just give Tolu a round of applause for a wonderful, insightful afternoon? Thank you so much, Tolu, for sharing your story with us. We thank you, and we look forward to buying your product. That for me is very key. I'll be one of the first buyers once it goes out there, and I'll be more than happy through the network to sponsor as many children as we can to lay their hands on your product. That is our promise to you, and we'll make that happen by God's grace as soon as you launch off. From me, it's a wrap, and thank you everyone for joining us and staying with us, and I wish you all a wonderful afternoon. Bye for now.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you.